you go ahead and
all right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight on this Fat Tuesday of Mardi Gras. We have a number of wonderful speakers here tonight. And my name is Joe Brancoli. I'm the chair of the Falls of the James group. We welcome you all. We like to start every program with an item of good news. And the one that seems appropriate for tonight is that within the last week or so, we have received a methane sniffer, a methane detector, for which we paid for with a grant from the National Sierra Club, and which we will very soon use around Richmond and surrounding areas. And this is going to be done in direct partnership with the University of Richmond, who will be providing an intern and a lot of expertise on how this is done. And so I believe that in the month of March, we're going to start using this device to take readings to see, to find and detect leaks in the system of Richmond Gas Works, and to attempt to raise awareness about the methane delivery system that goes out from the city of Richmond into the surrounding counties, and to provide information to help advocate for an energy transition to get off of gas eventually. So this is something we're looking forward to very much, and it has come to fruition. We're very glad about that. Our program tonight was in large part put together by our executive committee member, Kayla Li, who has spent a lot of time doing this, finding the folks, and working with Todd Lookingbill. So I would like to turn it over now to Kayla.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have the good fortune of introducing Todd Lookingbill, who chairs the Department of Geography, Environment, and Sustainability at the University of Richmond. He's a landscape ecologist whose research and teaching emphasize inclusive approaches to promoting environmental awareness in urban landscapes. So he's also taught courses on sustaining, thriving, equitable environments in the Western US, Australia, and South Africa. And like many of us, he enjoys spending time in and along the James River. Tonight, he has brought with him an entourage of young environmentalists to tell us about what they've been up to recently. So Todd, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Great, thanks, Carol, and thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here and kind of see the mix of faces on the screen. It's great to get all these different perspectives and folks together, and I think we'll all enjoy hearing from one another. It's my pleasure to, I guess, play master of ceremonies, and I'll kind of try to stay out of the way for the most part. If you have questions or comments or what have you, I'm sure it's fine to put that in the chat. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn in that. But otherwise, we'll kind of move through. We got a lot of people talking about some really exciting stuff. The first three are all seniors at the University of Richmond in our different majors, and we'll talk about their majors as they go through, and they'll talk about some of the research that they've been doing as part of their senior capstone and related projects. Charles Mullis is going to kick us off. He's a senior majoring in geography and physics, and his research focuses on landfills, waste markets, and carbon offsets. And so he'll be talking about institutions of higher education and what's going on with them and these offset markets. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Dr. Lookingbill, and thank you everyone for having me. So I've got a, wait, no, there we go, yes. So I'll be talking a bit about my research on offsets. So to make sure we're on the same page, I'm defining an offset as a purchased entity used to compensate for damages or externalities caused by an institution during its usual operations. So for example, if a business is getting energy from a fossil fuel company, then it can invest in, for example, solar energy at an amount equal to the energy that it consumes from fossil fuels. And it can claim that it's a carbon neutral business, even if it's still using those fossil fuels. So a couple things are implicit in this definition of offsets. So the first is that those neutrality claims that I was just talking about, and you can see two examples from higher education down at the bottom here, from colleges in Virginia. That's really sort of the main motivation of these offsets. And that's really the only motivation of these offsets. They provide no other benefit to the institution purchasing them other than marketing benefits. And it is also implicit that these offsetting institutions are not directly involved in creating these projects. They provide only financial support. So when we get to higher education institutions in these offset markets, a couple of problems arise from two different directions, really. So the first is that we're supposed to be the ones in higher education coming up with the solutions, not the ones who are just providing finances for others to come up with solutions. Higher education institutions are supposed to be driven by the desire to help society. They are not driven by profit motivations. They're driven by wanting to help everyone. And that's not to say that profit motivated businesses can't produce good solutions, but in general, universities are committed to implementing more equitable solutions. And an appendix to that is that higher education institutions are driven by innovation. And so a lot of these offset projects, they are generally very routine. So for example, you could have a tree planting project to reduce carbon emissions. And that's great, but there's nothing particularly innovative about that. And then there's the second direction from which it's kind of interesting that higher education institutions engage in offset markets. So I have here a picture, bottom left, of our dining hall at University of Richmond, and we love them, it's great. But I put that there to remind us that higher education institutions are residential institutions, and as a result, they produce a lot of waste and consume a lot of energy. And so we have an obligation to do something about that. And one part of the theory of offsets, a big part of it, is this triangle on the bottom right. It basically says that offsetting is supposed to be only a last resort for emissions that you do not deal with in any other way. And so when you get offsets right from the start, you automatically do not pay attention to these other earlier steps of reducing your emissions, not doing things that emit in the first place as much, and then trying to replace all of the sources of emissions that we can replace using, for example, renewable energy instead of fossil fuels directly. So one of the big case studies that I focused on in my research was this case study of landfill gas in Virginia colleges. So there's this company called Ingenco, and Ingenco used landfill gas to energy systems to provide offsets to businesses and colleges. And you can see a sample of businesses and two of the colleges in this graphic in the top right. They signed a contract in 2014 with 6 colleges in the Council of Independent Colleges in Virginia. And so landfill gas combustion, which you can see an example of sort of what a facility would look like in the bottom left, that does reduce carbon emissions by combusting methane for energy. However, Ingenco has significant violations, and it works with waste management and drives waste markets. And so we cannot confidently call them a very clean company and way of doing things. I have to include this graphic in the bottom right because I just think it's hilarious, and I believe we need to have fun in our research sometimes. It's what they call a smart flower, and it's this high-end solar device from an affiliate company of Ingenco. This one is on Mary Baldwin's campus, and they cite that it's only for symbolic purposes, which I find hilarious because they're using landfill gas. So in conclusion, higher education institutions have an important contribution to make, but when they're buying offsets, they're not using their greatest advantages. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, very good. Thanks for kicking us off. And where are you all working to get this out and get this written up and out and writing somewhere?
Yes, we have a publishable paper pending.
Great. So we can learn more, contact you to learn more about the carbon offsets markets and
Certainly,
how
anytime.
they work in higher institutions for sure. Thanks. Our second speaker also talking about some research that she's working on. And Sarah, your geography, do you have another major or not?
Yeah, I'm also a global studies major.
Global studies. I knew there was a second
Yep.
one. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sarah's going to talk about some efforts that she's doing, a bunch of projects. One's, as are all of these students. One she's going to talk about today is talking about efforts to create a series of maps describing the environmental and social impacts of a landfill expansion project with the concerned citizens of Charles City County, or C5. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. So this past summer, I worked with concerned citizens of Charles City County, aka C5. They're a grassroots group based out of Charles City, which is southeast of Richmond. For those of you who are familiar with it, it's a pretty rural county, and there have been many issues of environmental injustices that have happened in Charles City. So for example, in 2018, there was a pipeline project that was proposed, and there was a pipeline that was supposed to go through Charles City. So citizens mobilized against the pipeline and essentially were able to stop the project because of their efforts. So after this, C5 decided to direct their attention towards other issues of environmental injustice. So specifically, there's a mega landfill within Charles City, and mega landfill basically means this landfill has a huge capacity. So it takes in trash from major metropolitan areas up and down the East Coast. So the landfill gets trash from New York City, from New Jersey, places like that. And so these garbage trucks come down to Charles City. There's a lot of dirt roads around the landfill. So as they come down the road, they kick up dirt into people's properties, and the smell that results from the trash is just awful, especially considering it's Virginia. It gets really humid, it gets gross. So the smell alone is concerning, but in 2018, there was a series of leaks. So substances from the landfill were getting into local waterways, and nothing really was done to address this, which is especially concerning because most people who live in Charles City rely on private well water. So a lot of factors here making this an environmental injustice. But recently, the landfill proposed a project to expand their capacity. So they proposed to make 8 new landfill cells, which doubles the size of the landfill. And people are concerned because the landfill already can't manage what they already have. There's already been several issues, and now it's like, okay, you're going to expand the landfill, but you can't already manage what you have. So my job was to create maps to inform residents about the potential social impacts, environmental impacts, and just kind of tell people what's going on here. So I'll share my screen. This is a map I made. So I took blueprints for the landfill expansion project, and I did something called digitization, where you take like a picture and you make it into data that you can work with using GIS technology. So I made this map just kind of to show people what this project's going to look like. And then I made some other maps. Not sure. Let's see. Okay, so here's two of the other maps I made. One shows all the residencies that are around the landfill area. So I'm not sure if that's the correct map, but you all get the idea. This just kind of shows like where the landfill is in proximity to waterways and people's homes. And yeah, so I think the summer was pretty successful just by collaborating with C5 and getting constant feedback on the work I was doing and making sure that the maps I was making that were going to benefit C5 was really important. And yeah, and it was a really good summer working with these wonderful people. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, really using the GIS technology, the power of kind of mapping to show the potential impacts to air quality, water, to people living around, people's homes living around this landfill, and working with the community. That's putting a lot of pieces together. Very impressive. And that's part of this contribution to this EPA video effort, right? Isn't that the competition you're in right now?
Yeah, so me and a couple friends are part of the EPA competition where we wrote a strategy document to address the environmental issues, the environmental justice issues in Charles City. So we made a video about these issues in our proposed plan to address this, and we'll find out late spring how we did, and C5 gets some prize money if we're successful.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed. All right, great. Keeping the ball rolling with Natalie Schaus, who is not content with 2 majors, has, I think, 3 majors, right? Natalie, geography, environmental studies, and sociology. And a minor, right? Minor in religious studies. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a tongueful. I imagine it was a bunch of books.
Yes.
Her research focuses on water, gold mining, and the human environmental impacts of those gold mining activities. And so she'll be talking about Buckingham, Virginia's threat of gold mining and the potential implications that people in the environment might face if that were to come to fruition. Take it away, Natalie.
All right, can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So my research this summer was with Dr. Finleybrook, and I kind of didn't know what I was going to do when I started out. And I looked into gold mining in Buckingham, Virginia, which we'll talk a little bit about. And then I was really interested in the social and environmental impacts, just because it kind of is a nice culmination of all of my majors and all of my interests, really. So basically, there's a company from Canada called Aston Bay, and they came to Virginia because there is gold in Buckingham County, and Buckingham County has already faced a lot of environmental injustice, and they were also part of the fight against the pipeline that Sara talked about. And a lot of their waterways connect directly to the James River. So mining could cause irreversible water contamination and ultimately affect a lot of people in Virginia. So one of the big things that I looked into was environmental justice, but specifically critical environmental justice, which is kind of a theory by Dr. David Pellow. And it emphasizes nature in addition to the regular things that EJ kind of addresses with like people. And I thought that it was kind of interesting that a lot of EJ is really made for scholars, even though people that are benefiting from it are not scholars. And so I thought that it would be interesting to kind of look at how environmental justice could be combined with something called rights of nature, which basically just allows nature to have a standing in court and people can fight for it on their behalf. So I kind of looked into all of those things and wrote a paper. My research was not as hands-on as a lot of other students, so I kind of spent a lot of time on the computer, which could be boring, but I really valued my time. And this PowerPoint is old, so my map got blurry and I don't know how to fix that, but basically it just shows you where Buckingham County is situated in relation to the James River, and the red area shows where the mineral exploration sites have been. So basically, if you don't recognize the environment's importance on its own, I don't think that environmental justice is complete. And gold mining would be really damaging to both people and the environment because they also rely primarily on well water that's private. And so it's not covered by a lot of the legislation and the Clean Water Act. And they're a relatively poor area. And so they don't have a lot of funds to fight back against environmental injustice. And if they keep getting attacked, it's going to be a really big problem. And I just think that rights of nature could help to give their arguments more legal standing. So it's not to say that environmental justice isn't important, because it is, but rights of nature could also kind of help their argument and prevent these things from happening. And I thought that my project was really interesting because it connected me to a place on the map that actually had a lot more value than just looking at a map, because people in Buckingham have a lot of connections, and Union Hill, which is the area in Buckingham where the mining would be near, is historically Black. And it just shows that there are a lot of areas in the vicinity that are threatened, but it's more than just that. It's also about the people. So I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, so this was especially important to me because I've kind of lived near the Chesapeake Bay and dealt with water my whole life. And I think that watersheds bring people together in a lot of different ways. And if there are any gold mining disasters, it would be a problem to so many people, and it's not something that you can easily clean up. So please be kind to our wildlife, and there are many connections that we may not think about. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening. Oh, I also made a story map that was shared with the community, and they really liked it. And I'm working on a paper. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing with it, but there is a paper there somewhere.
Now you stole my follow-up question about the story maps, all the different, and one of the things that I think is really great is all the different ways in which you all are sharing this information through kind of formal papers and videos and story maps, and just really getting practice and really becoming really effective communicators in all these different mediums. It's been fun to watch. So those are 3 seniors that are have talked about some of their kind of senior research projects. This next kind of presentation is going to be tag teamed by Craig, Caudill, and Kayla Li, who are 2 sophomores at the university who are both Bonner interns with the Center for Civic Engagement. Craig's doing his internship with the city's Office of Sustainability, and he's also a cheerleader. So he, when we found out we had this conflict, he had to record his summary of what he's been up to with his internship, and we're going to show that in a second. And then following right on the heels of that, Kayla can take over. And Kayla's also a sophomore, considering majors in geography and environmental studies, and she'll be talking about her experiences as a Bonner Scholar in her internship with the James River Association and the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So here's Craig and Kayla.
Hi, my name is Craig Caudill. I am an intern at the City of Richmond Office of Sustainability, and I'm a Bonner Scholar, so I do it for my Bonner internship site. And at the City of Richmond Office of Sustainability, I specifically work on the RVA Green 2050 project, which is like trying to get the City of Richmond to become carbon neutral by 2050. So actually this week, the whole plan was revised over the past couple of years and is being presented to the City Council on Monday, and then in for like full adoption next Friday. So throughout that initial process last year, I was helping with creating with the data processing. So transferring the language from one document to the next so that we can make toolkits for other departments to use in the City of Richmond, if that makes sense. So like within the Office of Sustainability, we would have different objectives. So I worked with transportation, and what I would do is I would create a toolkit for the people that work in the transportation departments to say like, you need to make your vehicles like electrified by this date and all this stuff, so that like whatever the initiative is within that department, that they could have like the resources and access that they need from the City of Richmond Office of Sustainability to reach our carbon neutral 2050 goals. So I did that when that was a need. but now some of the management and people that work in the office shifted around. So I was asked to be the social media manager. So that's a recent role that I started. So now I kind of just work with outreach, communications, and things like that. So I work on a monthly newsletter, which uses like an objective of the month. So for this month, it is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So I come up with a bunch of events that happen in the city of Richmond related to the event of the month. And I send that out in the newsletter along with like a couple other things that are important. And then throughout the month, I'll post on social media for the City of Richmond Office of Sustainability and promote those events or like other things that are important. So like for this upcoming Monday, I've made like a couple flyers for the press event that, or for the city adoption with the RVA Green 2050 plan. So I've been working with that. So that's kind of a newer role that I've taken on. But before I was, like I said, I was more in like a fluid position where it was like whatever was needed at that point, which was like the transportation toolkit. So my email is craig.caudill@richmond.edu. If any of you have any other questions, or feel free to reach out to me. If you're interested in interning at the City of Richmond, if you have any events that are that you'd like me to promote within the city, social media networks and things like that. But thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the presentations. Hi, my name is Craig Caudill.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, hi, my name's Kayla. I'm also a Bonner Scholar here at the University of Richmond. It's a really cool program where basically they pair you with like a nonprofit organization, and you're basically there for 3.5 years, so you can get a really good idea of what you're doing. The one I'm currently paired with is the James River Association, which was it was an environmental organization formed in the 1970s as like a response to the Keystone spills. I don't know if you guys know what the Keystone spills were, but basically there is a factory that was dumping like this insecticide into the river for about a decade. And yeah, it poisoned literally everything. It got into the air through the ventilation systems. And yeah, so this organization was basically founded to, I guess, help with the cleanup effects. So currently I'm a restoration intern there. So I focus more like with in the field projects. So like tree plantings with riparian buffers. We do those to help with the erosion of the river in certain places, specifically like with farmers who have like cattle and other livestock. And I also do invasive species removals. So that's in partnership with the James River Park system here. But JRA has this little snippet of land that we manage. So every month or so, we'll take a group of volunteers out there to help with like the manual removal of like, say, English ivy one month and then garlic mustard the next. But yeah, basically manual removal to help, I guess, bring balance back to the ecosystem. And then, because of the like experience I got at the James River Association, I was able to get a summer internship at the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So this is a really cool program. It's the Park Ranger Career Development Program. And basically it focuses on like college people my age, giving them the chance to, I guess, live at the park for the summer and like seeing what it would be like to be a park ranger with the intention of like perhaps like pursuing it as a career. So they basically just kind of threw me in and had me do a little bit of everything. There's like a week I would be in maintenance, and then the next week they would have me in housekeeping. I was in the office. I even got to do like a ride along night with one of the law enforcement rangers. So I got to shadow him and see what he would do for his night duties. But I think my favorite part of the internship was probably the interpretive side of things. So there would be weeks I would be like with the educators there. And so I would get to help lead like hikes specifically, I was like at natural tunnels. So we would take people through like this giant tunnel that there's like a railroad that passes through. So that was really cool. We would do like programs with some of the caves there. And then we would do, I guess, more like children's programming. Oh, I even got to, we had a snake there called Popcorn, the corn snake, and we would get to take him around and just, yeah, teach people about corn snakes. So that was really cool. Especially since, I guess, you would get to encounter so many different types of people there. Some of them wouldn't have much experience with the outdoors or nature. And so it was really cool getting to connect them with that. And yeah, just kind of, again, interpreting for different types of people. But in addition to that, a really cool part of the program was that they gave me so much training. Like they got me CPR and first aid certified. I got to do a whole week where like it was like a canoe kayaking seminar. And so we like learned how to take groups out for that. I even got a ServSafe certification. And then they also helped me with interviewing. They did a whole workshop on that, basically walked you through the Department of Conservation and Recreation's like interview process and like what the hiring manager would be like looking for. And then after that, we would do like a mock interview for a full-time position there. So I highly recommend the program if you're looking into something with more like natural resource work or education. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. That was great. So you have a invasive species volunteer day coming up, right? Or not? Am I right about that?
We were supposed to have one last Friday, but it actually rained.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So it's last Friday.
Right. Yeah. But oh, sorry.
We'll look for your next opportunity there to get out in the park and kind of do some work with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I think that's a great example of a couple of our enthusiastic kind of sophomore students in the internships they're doing within the city and the Commonwealth. Gwen, I love your question. I'm going to save that to ask everybody kind of at the end if there's time. I'd love to hear people's opinions about that actually from a student perspective. Our shifting gears one last time to look kind of internally at clubs that students are participating in and opportunities that they're generating for themselves to get involved in advocacy within the city, state, and region. We're going to start with Zoe Cultrara, who is also a sophomore, majoring in environmental studies, minoring in art and communications. She just mentioned earlier how she was a graphic design intern with the Office of Sustainability. She's also involved in the art club and Green UR, which is the organization she's going to talk about right now and share with us some of the latest and greatest activities that Green UR at the University of Richmond is up to. It's all yours, Zoe.
Yeah. Okay. Can everyone see that? Okay. Yeah, so hi, I'm Zoe, and I'm a member of Green UR, and I'll be talking a little bit about what our group does. So Green UR is a student-led environmental advocacy group here on campus, and the main things we do are organize environmental campaigns and host events for student education and involvement in environmental advocacy. And we've also recently become a part of the international climate group, Fridays for Future, which was founded by Greta Thunberg. So we also encompass their campaigns and actions. So for a bit of an overview of our history and achievements. Green UR started as a US Green Building Council student group, which focused on getting buildings on campus to become LEED certified. And LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So to qualify, buildings have to meet certain standards for carbon, water, energy, waste, and so on to show that they're designed more sustainably. And so now we have 16 of these certified buildings on campus. Our group also advocated for composting on campus, which led to the establishment of the group Rethink Waste under facilities. And they work to try and divert as much waste as possible from landfills. And they've so far implemented composting at all of our dining locations at the university. And then after these two achievements, the group became fairly inactive. We had occasional volunteering for trash pickup and invasive species removal. And this year, Green UR picked back up and started becoming a lot more active. So in September 2022, we officially became a Fridays for Future local group, as I mentioned before. And on September 9th, we took part in the global climate strike here on campus for the first time. And as you can see from the photo, we got a pretty good turnout, so pretty good success. In December, we hosted our first climate justice teach-in, which was a collaboration between several student and local groups to educate people on campus about certain climate justice topics. So that included Climate Emergency 101, intersections of racial climate justice, and taking action. And so what we've been working on currently is our upcoming divestment campaign, which we are planning to launch on March 3rd with a press release and a petition. And we're also preparing for a campus strike on March 24th, calling for the university to divest from fossil fuels. And as for what we've done so far with divestment, last month we met with President Halleck just to bring divestment into the conversation and let him know that there are students on campus interested in pushing for divestment. Tomorrow, we have a meeting with David Hale, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Business Affairs Office, which basically controls the university's finances. And from there, we'll see what our next steps with the university will be. But our main target is really the vice rector, who sits on the investment committee. And that committee has historically been quite opposed to divestment. And lastly, some facts on where university investment stands right now. There are over 200 intermediary investment companies who are in charge of where our investments go. A lot of moving parts, so it's definitely a challenge to regulate or even know exactly what we're investing in. And they're also not very transparent with that in the first place. And there's also arguments over transaction costs being very high to screen for climate or other related risks. So that's also one of the reasons why they're a bit reluctant to listen to our demands for divestment. And currently, from what we know, there is no assessment of climate or carbon risk at all for investments, which Faculty Senate and Green UR is asking for, as well as more transparency for investments in the future in general. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Zoe. That was super. So I know the Sierra Club's been active in those Fridays for Future marches as well, which has been great. And everybody's looking forward to this March 24th event, this divestment strike in March. That's going to be another great opportunity to engage. I've been really impressed with how the students have been driving some of this divestment kind of discussion, and that's moved into the Faculty Senate, as you mentioned, and kind of other arenas around campus as well. So thanks for your leadership on that already. That's wonderful. Our next speaker, Haley Edmonds, is a third-year law student in our law school. And so we're going to get a little bit different perspectives in our last two talks from a kind of a more somebody who's reaching the end of their schooling, the end of that terminal degree. And then we're going to jump down to talk to the green teams and talk about some high school activities kind of after that. So Haley's going to talk about an Environmental Law Society and some of their activities. It's all yours.
Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's nice to get outside the law school bubble and see what else is out there in the university. I don't get that opportunity as much as I would hope. So yes, I'm a law student. So I am almost done. Just a few more months left and hopefully no more school after that. A little bit about me. I am from Virginia Beach originally. I went to UVA for undergrad, and then right after undergrad, went straight into law school, which is fairly uncommon. A lot of people take some gaps in between, and went into law school with environmental law in mind. Richmond has a pretty small environmental law community. So a lot of that experience I've gotten has been through internships and externships. Right now I'm working with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, doing a little mix of law and lobbying right now, which has been super exciting. So that's almost over. Well, the session is, but not the internship. And that's been a really cool experience. I've also worked for the Environmental Integrity Project, which is an environmental nonprofit up in DC that does a lot of cool work. Basically, they call themselves a watchdog for the EPA. And then I also worked for the Attorney General's office in their environmental section, which actually no longer exists because the new administration decided there is no longer a need for it. But yeah, that's a little bit of what I've been doing over the summers. But during the school year, I am the president of the Environmental Law Society. This is a club for law students. It's mostly just to kind of get us together and have a sense of community there and network and just show the opportunities within environmental law and connect people to internships and people like that. And also we have events also for people outside of the law school community. We're actually having an event coming up next Tuesday that I'll drop the details in the chat for in a second. But we're having Jeff Prieto from, he is the general counsel for EPA right now. He's basically like the head honcho of their legal team. And he's worked on a bunch of key cases like West Virginia versus EPA, is working on Sackett versus EPA. So really big environmental law cases, and he knows he's right in the midst of all of it. So seems like a really cool person to pick the brain of. So if you're interested in that, feel free to attend. That's next Tuesday in the Moot Court Room, which is a really cool room. And lunch will be provided. So that's a plus. But yeah, there's a few other events we have going on. We're having like a career-oriented event near the end of the semester, which is mostly tailored toward law students. But if you're interested in environmental law and want to see what kind of careers are out there, reach out to me. I'll also put my email down there and I can make sure you get that information. But yeah, if you have any more questions about just what environmental law looks like, and if that's at all something you are thinking about in your future, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you.
Thanks, yeah, that was great. Yeah, I just got the email from Professor Sachs about the talk next week. So February 28th, right? Put that on our calendars as well. That looks like a really good one. And the free lunch. Who says there's no such thing as a free lunch?
Not on Tuesday.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Our last presentation then this evening is from a group that was organized by Camille Kidwell and Maya Zasler in August 2019 after they were inspired by some international travels and sustainability actions that were observed in other countries. And they started this group called the Green Teens. Camille is now a freshman at Loyola University in Chicago. Maya's still with us in Richmond, and she's joined by her sister, Murtaugh, they're both students at Collegiate High School. And they'll also be joined by Charlotte Broadbent, who's a junior at St. Catherine's. So I think I got everybody in the group. If I missed anybody, please introduce yourselves. And we're excited to hear you all share a little bit more about the green teams and some of the activities you all are up to.
So you got us all. Thank you so much for that introduction. Like you said, my name is Maya. I'm a senior at Collegiate High School. And I'd first like to say that how grateful we are to be here today and to hear about all of these amazing opportunities and work that you all presenters have done. I am going to share my screen now and give a little bit more of an introduction for Green Teens. So Green Teens is a 501c3 organization. Also, can everybody see that? Sorry. Great. Okay. Green Teens is a 501c3 organization that Camille and I co-founded alongside Christina King, who's not here tonight. She's a first year at UVA. But we started this organization and took the initiative upon ourselves to focus on education and action-oriented volunteer opportunities, specifically for Richmond youth. Because I'm sure everybody remembers around that time, early 2020, when the pandemic hit, there were not a lot of volunteer opportunities that we could pursue. And so we wanted to create some of those for our own, and those international travels and experiences fueled that desire to create those opportunities. And we also, the education piece has been a constant because Camille, Christina, and I were brought together after watching the documentary 50 Minutes to Save the World, which focuses on the negative effects on coral reef ecosystems from anthropogenic activities. And that inspired us to do our own research and wanting to share that with a larger group of people.
Okay, so here is an overview of our board, and we represent a variety of schools such as Freeman High School, St. Catherine's, Collegiate, Deep Run, and UVA. And then we adopted Quioccasin Road through the Virginia Department of Transportation's Adopt a Highway program back in November 2020, and we hold 2 cleanups a year. We recently held a cleanup in November, and we plan on holding another one this April around Earth Day. And they're a really great way to get the community together and meet new people and clean up a road that a lot of people drive by every day.
Skip to slide number 10. Sorry, just one moment. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. So one of our previous events that we hosted over the summer was a mock trial with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. Sorry if you guys can hear my roommate talking in the background. But yeah, we've had a partnership with them over the past couple of years, and this was a really unique event that we were able to hold to highlight the importance of the judicial system in terms of climate legislation. But basically what we did is we performed a case regarding Dominion Energy's coal ash emissions. And we actually had Delegate Van Valkenburg come and narrate. So that was a really cool opportunity to see how, how the climate interacts with the judicial system.
Something that we did quite recently is going to the Virginia General Assembly and lobbying for different climate-related bills. And so alongside another board member, we met with our representatives and discussed, we were with Green UR students and met the night before on Monday night, kind of debriefing and figuring out how to approach the day and learning from those students how to best approach and get our message across in the brief 10 minutes that we had to meet with our representatives or their aides. And that opportunity was really great because it was a way to have our voices heard. And again, back to the action-oriented piece, I talked about bills relating to establishing environmental literacy fund, which was unfortunately laid on the table. And then also about climate resiliency and climate plans for different localities, which we'll touch on in a moment. That's another piece that we've been working on as a group. The other part, a big project that our group has done is creating a documentary that focuses on environmental justice and environmental racism, specifically in Richmond and in the Jackson Ward area. We worked with another youth-led organization called Outspoken Narrative to create a film that received an honorable mention at the Richmond Environmental Film Festival, which was really exciting. That experience was, it got us out and teens out into the community. We did air quality data collection in Jackson Ward and in Windsor Farms, which is neighboring community just a few miles away, and the experience in walking through those neighborhoods is drastically different, and that's a reflection of decades old policy that's been in place. And so we're sharing that message, we're promoting it on social media, obviously at the film festival, and yeah.
One of our more recent projects, we have been working with a subcommittee of the Henrico Conservation Action Network to push Henrico County to adopt a climate plan that has, vulnerability assessments, greenhouse gas reduction targets, and things like mitigation plans that the county currently does not have in place. So we have been planning and attending meetings with all of the Henrico supervisors, which was really interesting to meet with them because my supervisor does not believe in climate change. So that was quite disheartening to hear. But it was definitely a motivating factor to keep pushing for change. And so we're currently kind of working on next steps in this process. We're working on creating an infographic that we can present to them and get on the table for one of the spring meetings where we can talk to all of the supervisors at the same time to keep pushing for a comprehensive climate plan.
So we are currently working on a few different projects. Like Camille just shared, we have been working with the Henrico Conservation Action Network to encourage Henrico in adopting a climate plan. And as always, we're looking to expand and facilitate civic engagement opportunities for teenagers in Richmond, one of which is our spring cleanup, which is part of Green Teens Initiative to have biannual cleanups, which our last one was in November, like Charlotte said. And please reach out if you have any ideas for projects or programs. We're always looking to hear new ideas and perspectives. So to keep in touch, we actually, our website was updated as of 2022, and it now includes a blog, and there are monthly blog posts by Green Teens board members, which you can check out at greenteensrva.com. And we have our Instagram, which just like updates about what we've been doing and initiatives. And if you would like to keep in touch or have any questions, please reach out to us via email or through Instagram in the DMs.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. That's great. And I encourage, I saw Haley posted something and Natalie put something in the blog about links to things that for further resources. And there's been some questions from follow-ups. If you have links to throw in to the blog, the chat, please go ahead and do that. Are you doing the air quality monitoring with the Science Museum, or how did you, is that the partner for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. They're a great partner. Super. Thanks for the link to the documentary. That's great. That was one of the questions. So a couple quick questions to if we have a few more minutes here before 8 o'clock. One is 2050 too late? Well, how do you feel about this sense of urgency? How do you feel about this RVA 2050, or just a lot of the talk? What's the sense of urgency that you all are feeling to address this climate crisis? Anybody can feel free to jump in on that. I'll prime you for the next question. Go ahead, Natalie. I'll prime the next question is, if you, those who did internships, did you, those internships make you want to work for those agencies and those groups, or what was your reactions?
Well, I know the question was for Craig, but he's not here. I would say, like, yes, 2050 is probably too late, but honestly, it's really hard to pass any legislation. And we talked a lot about that in my environmental law and policy class. And so I think sometimes politicians are more likely to side with bills if it gives them like more time. So, I mean, it might be too late, but I think it's honestly better than nothing. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now.
Thanks, Natalie. Another take on that? Anybody else have another take on your sense of urgency and timelines? How about from one of the high schoolers? Or go ahead, Zoe. Perfect.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, we're probably not being urgent enough. Like, we definitely aren't. But like Natalie was saying, like, it's kind of like the trade-off. Like, it's, I guess we have to compromise a bit.
We did a little bit of research on the RVA 2050, Green 2050, is that the name? Sorry. Plan for our documentary, and I believe it's supposed to be just Maya also interned with the Office of Sustainability, like a little bit more about the details of the plan. So it's just kind of like a gradual reduction of emissions until we reach neutral status, I believe.
Just to kind of go off of that, so I did intern for the Richmond Office of Sustainability last summer. Most of my job was focused on research on the use of US Census data for the office's work, and whether or not that was a good or reliable metric or source of data. To more specifically address the question, though, this may be a cynical view, but in my brief experience that I've had with different politicians or during the meetings with the supervisors, it does seem evident that bills or policies that are really good at either bringing in money or buying time are popular, and that when it comes to climate change, tiptoeing around the idea that it's pressing it's much easier to do than actually addressing issues that a lot of people face. And although I would like to see more immediate action, I just don't feel that it's necessarily feasible. It makes me feel a lot better knowing so many people are doing such great work to kind of push it forward. But for those longer term plans, I think that they are ultimately beneficial, because the drastic change just doesn't seem, like I said, feasible to come about.
Thanks, Maya. Yeah, interesting perspectives. I'll just say that we're at the university considering trying to push our 2050 timeline for carbon neutrality down a little bit, but that's still where it stands for the university as well. So what about these internships? Do they lead to, did you enjoy them? Do they lead you to wanting to work for these groups? A lot of you kind of talk about your experiences doing internships.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say for me, it definitely gave me like a more realistic view of what it would be like to be a ranger, because I think when I was a kid. Like I always had like, I kind of like glamorized it as like my dream job, but then like I got there and I just realized like it's a lot of responsibility, and like it's a cool job, but like well-paying positions are pretty hard to come by. But I will say like I'm super grateful for the opportunity to like be able to explore like that career more and just get a better feel for what I enjoy doing.
How about you, Hallie? You're graduating. What's your internship? What'd you get out of that?
Yeah, I've loved my internship experiences. Well, the first one was the U.S. Attorney General's, the Commonwealth Attorney General's office in their environmental section, and that one was cool, except for the fact that you don't exactly get to choose which side you're on. And so I remember like my first assignment it was like a agency official who was taking money under the table in order to not enforce something. They like researched this topic, and I was like, we're gonna get him, like we're gonna make sure that he gets punished. And then I shared my findings. They're like, oh no, that's our client. And I was like, okay, I think I'm going to shift to the nonprofit side of things. And that's been really rewarding to be able to jump in and be with similar minded people who, you know, not like people in the governmental side of things aren't similarly minded, but at least have a little bit more agency over where you get to direct your energy.
Leaving law school, being excited to join the nonprofit world, not pay law school debts. There you go. You have it. I know we're up at 8 o'clock. Andrew, you had a bunch of questions. You have one of those you want to pull out and kind of, I'll let you choose kind of a last question.
I was just curious about the sort of pollution that the gold mine that we're likely to produce.
Yeah, so gold mining has a lot of pollution, and it's hard to tell just how much there will be, especially because we've been kind of kept in the dark on what the plans are for Buckingham. So basically, gold mining, you know, since it's underground, it moves a lot of earth, and it can unearth like heavy metals and stuff. And to get to the actual gold ore, you have to use cyanide, and there are currently no regulations for cyanide use in Virginia, which is really concerning. And it's really effective at getting at the gold, but if it gets into groundwater, it's really, really poisonous, which is obviously not great for people or the environment, especially since they use well water in that area. And basically, whenever gold mining happens, there are like just byproducts, which can be chemicals that they use or other things. And they put them into these dams called tailings dams. And it's pretty effective for the most part at keeping stuff together, but there have been a lot of instances of tailings dam failures where it'll just break loose and it'll all go directly into waterways, which is obviously really horrible. There have been a number of studies of that happening in Canada and South America and even some in the US. So it's really hard to tell how much pollution exactly will happen, but it's pretty clear that there won't be no pollution. So it's best to stop it before anything bad can really happen, because it costs a lot of money and people's lives, and that's never really great.
Thank you.
On that note, Natalie, that's never really great. Thank you all for your perspectives and sharing your experiences, and just for not just being on this call, but for the amazing work that you kind of are all doing related to all these issues. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the Sierra Club for this invitation. Appreciate that too.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And Joe, I think you want to thank everybody as well, and let them know about honorarium.
Yes, I think we said a little bit about this just before the meeting tonight, but another challenge for you all is if you will decide on a group, an organization that you would like to contribute money to, we will contribute $100 to any group of your choosing in appreciation for you all being here tonight. And I would just like to say that it really is remarkable how much of what I heard tonight links to work that we're doing, work that we know people who are doing. We have had a speaker in the past about the rights of nature, a woman who lives in Powhatan County, and she is also working now actively against the mega landfill that's proposed in Cumberland, for example. And I'm just really encouraged to hear you all talk about lobbying, your involvement in politics. We have a chance this fall to get a better General Assembly in place. And we have elections for the supervisors in Henrico, which you mentioned, and Chesterfield. There's room for improvement, and to say the least. And Haley, I want to thank you for mentioning the event next Tuesday. With the person from the EPA. I mean, that is very attractive. So thank you all is what I'm trying to say. And we're gonna do a few announcements now.
Could I say, as a very, very old person, it gives me great hope for the future of my great-grandchildren that you people who are in your prime now are working on this problem. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. So you see on your screen now a list of announcements and upcoming events. We have on February 25th, this coming weekend, a walk on the Richmond Slave Trail with our chapter chair, Ralph Grove. He is the top volunteer in the state of Virginia and also an outings leader in the state of Virginia. We have, I believe, the climate strike on March 3rd was mentioned tonight. That one event that will be part of that is a rally at the Bell Tower on Capitol Square on Friday, March 3rd at noon. We have the, everything was already mentioned tonight, the RVA Environmental Film Festival. I am so pleased that you all entered the film contest for that, Green Teens. And that film festival is back running from March 10th through the 21st, all events free, all the events in person. The opening night will be at the Science Museum of Virginia with a film by local filmmaker Melissa Lesh that has gotten a lot of attention, called Wildcat. Then that weekend, March 11th and 12th, will be at the Bird. I think you all might be coming back from spring break then. So if you want to, if you're able to make it down to the beautiful Bird Theater. The evening that the film festival will be on your campus is March 14th, the Tuesday night. And I see the deer. The deer is kind of stopped there in the road. All right. This is a bit of another doubleheader. Tonight we had this program and your basketball game at the same time. On March 14th is the film on your campus that's being sponsored by Kelsey Fastabend and Rob Andrzejewski of your sustainability department. That same evening is our next monthly program, a virtual program on wildlife corridors and the importance of habitat connectivity. So both of those, March 14th. And our April program is virtual again, and it is about coyotes with Dr. Richard Groover. We have a calendar, and stay tuned. We are just beginning to plan for what we hope can be a big yard sale at the university on the schedule it used to happen on, which is that it would be done in May. I feel like there was something else. There's always something else, but anyway, unless anyone else has any announcements or final words, that will be the end of our program tonight. And really, thank you all. I learned so much tonight. I've heard of, among other things, the Green Teens organization. Now I know much more about that.
Thank you all so much. And thank you, Todd, and thank you, Carol, for scheduling everybody and organizing everybody. You all did a great job. And I will send a recording as soon as it gets put together, as well as I'll send links to the announcements when I have the recording. So in the next day or two, you should be getting that. So thank you again. And all you presenters, please let me know, where you'd like to get the honorarium sent to. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much, and good luck with your futures. We really need you out there.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you. It was so nice to meet everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.